All right, guys, chapter 5, man. It's time to get back into our miraculous journey that we are on with Edward Tulane here. Let's just do a mental little background check here, get our mental bookmark set. Remember, that's what good readers do, right? We got to go back in our brain and see what in the world did we just read last time so we know what's going on, right? Our whole point is to comprehend this and see. Well, that's my job, right? Is to help you comprehend better and use these tools. And that's one of the tools that I like to share every year. Is you got to go back and look where you don't just start reading blindly, right? Look back and see where you were, even if it's the last page or even a couple pages. I like to do it just because I know it's really helpful. Okay. So the last chapter we read was chapter 4. And first thing I see is little Edward here in his bed. And the last line I see on the other side of that was Pellegrino was going to tell him a story. Oh, yeah. So that was this whole chapter, right? It's about, this last chapter was all about Pellegrina, remember, Abeline's grandmother, telling Edward and Abeline a story. And this is the picture that's in here, right? Got little Edward in bed. We got Abeline there. Not a serious face she's got. She's got that very serious kind of look and was telling the story. So basically, it was about a princess who someone offered to marry her, and she took the ring and just swallowed it and said, I don't care about love. And she said that this is what I think about love. Boom. And then she ran off and ran from the prince and left the castle and went into the woods. So she got lost in the woods, and she ended up like knocking on a door, and it was like this witch that's sitting there counting 3,622. She's sitting there counting gold, right? So they're talking around, and she's telling her, "I'm hungry, but I'm a beautiful princess. You need to help me." And basically, the witch just ignored her. And then she said, "My father's the king, you better help me or there's going to be consequences." So as soon as she said that, the witch was like, "Oh, you want to talk about consequences, huh?" And boom, she told her, "Tell me the name of the one that you love," right? And she said, "Love? Why must everyone speak about love?" And she said, "I love no one." And the witch basically said, "You disappoint me." And said this farthiggery is what she said, and turned the princess into. Anybody remember what she turned her into? Yeah, a warthog. So she just kept on counting, and told her, you want to talk to me about consequences? Yeah, look at you. Now you're a warthog. So the king's men all came looking for her, and instead they were looking for a princess, but they found a warthog and they killed it. They butchered it, right? They brought it back to town. The chef cut it open, found the ring, and put it on his finger. And then Pellegrino said, "The end." And that was the whole story. So Abilene was not very happy with that story. She's like, "There's no happy ending. There's no love. There's no marriage and princess." No, there's this crazy witch story that she told her, right? So the last little part that even kind of gives me chills a little bit is Pellegrino tucked Edward in and said, "You disappoint me." Hmm. Hmm. Strange, right? Same thing that the witch said, which is kind of crazy to think about. Hmm. And that was it. She left her laying in bed, and Edward's just sitting there just staring at the ceiling, right? Um, and he said, "As bright as the stars on the moonless night, as bright as the stars on the moonless night." So that's what he kept thinking about while he was laying there in bed afterward. Okay, so we don't know where this is going and what's happening, but I don't know. I'm a little intrigued about this whole story that Pellegrino's grandma decided to tell him. All right, here's chapter 5. Looks like it got some like a case. Remember where they said they were going? They're going on a ship, right? The Queen Mary. It's like a giant cruise ship is where they're going. All right, so let's check out what chapter 5 is all about. Okay. The house on Egypt Street became frantic with activity as the Tulane family prepared for their voyage to England. Edward possessed a small trunk, and Abilene packed it for him, filling it with his finest suits and several of his best hats, and 3 pairs of shoes, all so that he might cut a fine figure in London. Before she placed each outfit in the trunk, she displayed it to him. "Do you like this shirt with this suit?" she asked him. "Or would you like to wear your black derby? You look very handsome in it. Shall we pack it?" A derby's a hat. And then finally, on a bright Saturday morning in May, Edward and Abilene and Mr. and Mrs. Tulane were on board the ship, standing at the railing. Pellegrina was at the dock. On her head, she wore a floppy hat strung around with flowers. She stared straight at Edward. Her dark eyes glowed. "Goodbye!" Abilene shouted to her grandmother. "I love you!" The ship pulled away from the dock. Pellegrina waved to Abilene. "Goodbye, lady," she called. "Goodbye." Edward felt something damp in his ears. Abilene's tears, he supposed. He wished that she would not hold him so tight. To be clutched so fiercely often resulted in wrinkled clothing. Finally, all the people on land, including Pellegrina, disappeared. Edward, for one, was relieved to see the last of her. Got to stop real quick again about Edward. He doesn't like to be held tightly. Why? Not because because she loves him or whatever. No, he doesn't like his clothes wrinkled. As was to be expected, Edward Tulane exacted much attention on board the ship. "What a singular rabbit," said an elderly lady with 3 strings of pearls wrapped around her neck. She bent down to look more closely at Edward. "Thank you," said Abilene. Several little girls on board gave Edward deep glances full of longing. They asked Abilene if they might hold him. "No," said Abilene. "I'm afraid that he is not the kind of rabbit who likes to be held by strangers." 2 young boys, brothers, named Martin and Amos, took a particular interest in Edward. "What does he do?" Martin asked Abilene on their second day at sea. He pointed at Edward, who was sitting on the deck chair with his long legs stretched in front of him. "He doesn't do anything," said Abilene. "Does he wind up somewhere?" asked Amos. "No," said Abilene. "He does not wind up." "What's the point of him, then?" said Martin. "The point is that he is Edward," said Abilene. "That's not much of a point," said Amos. "It's not," agreed Martin. And then, after a long, thoughtful pause, he said, "I wouldn't let anyone dress me like that." "Me neither," said Amos. "Do his clothes come off?" asked Martin. "Of course they do," said Abilene. "He has many different outfits, and he has his own pajamas, too. They are made of silk." Edward, as usual, was disregarding the conversation. A breeze was blowing in off the sea. And the silk scarf wrapped around his neck billowed out behind him. On his head he wore a straw boater. The rabbit was thinking that he must look quite dashing. It came as a total surprise to him when he was grabbed off the deck chair, and first his scarf, and then his jacket and pants were ripped from his body. He heard his pocket watch hit the deck of the ship, and then, held upside down, he watched the watch roll merrily toward Abilene's feet. "Look at him," said Martin. "He's even got underwear." He held Edward aloft so that Amos could see. "Take it off!" shouted Amos. "No!" screamed Abilene. Martin removed Edward's underwear. Edward was paying attention now. He was mortified. He was completely naked except for the hat on his head, and the other passengers on board the ship were looking at him, directing curious and embarrassing glances his way. "Give him to me!" screamed Abilene. "He's mine!" "No!" said Amos and Martin. "Give him to me!" He clapped his hands together and then held them open. "Toss him!" he said. "Please!" cried Abilene. "Don't throw him! He's made of china. He'll break. Martin threw Edward, and Edward sailed naked through the air. Only a moment ago, a rabbit had thought that being naked in front of a shipload of strangers was the worst thing that could possibly happen to him. But he was wrong. It was much worse being tossed, in the same naked state, from the hands of one grubby, laughing boy to another. Amos caught Edward and helped him up, displaying him triumphantly. "Throw him back!" called Martin. Amos raised his arm, but just as he was getting ready to throw Edward, Abilene tackled him, shoving her head into his stomach and upsetting the boy's aim. So it was that, with that, Edward did not go flying back into the dirty hands of Martin. Instead, Edward Tulane went overboard. That's it for the chapter. So yeah, Edward is naked, being thrown around on a ship, and now he's overboard. And with that, we are going to stop. So we'll see you next time on this miraculous journey.